I unveiled a family secret and broke free from my abusive mom and stepdad. My girlfriend suggested that I share this story, thinking that many might find it interesting. So, here I am, posting it under a pseudonym. I didn't want to use my main account as it would reveal my real identity, and I also don't care about getting some artificial boost to my karma. When I was growing up, I believed I had a good relationship with my family. That included my mom, the man I thought was my dad, who was actually my stepdad, and my 3 younger siblings. However, things started to change around the 5th grade. I had always been an excellent student, so my parents sent me to a private school known for its high test scores and good college placements. But in my last year there, I was really excited about going to a particular private middle school where all my friends and I had been accepted. Sadly, my parents sat me down and told me they couldn't afford my tuition for that school. They also had to withdraw the applications of my younger siblings, YB1 and YS, to the elementary school I had attended for the same reason. So, I was going to be enrolled in the local public middle school the following year. Near the end of 5th grade, during our science class, we started the unit on genetics. That lesson has always stuck with me because I look so different from my parents. Now that I'm in my 20s, I don't share any physical features with my mom. So, I started asking my teacher some tough questions about genetics in class. After answering which traits are usually dominant, she realized what I was getting at and quickly stopped me from asking more. Over that summer, I read every book I could find on the subject, fearing I might do something stupid. Then I went to the man I thought was my dad and asked if I was adopted. That conversation turned into a disaster. I don't remember all the details, but it got really heated and ended with him hitting me so hard that he broke my right cheekbone. My mom rushed me to the hospital, and I was told to say that I had accidentally hit my face on a doorknob. I even had to repeat that story to Child Protective Services. A week after coming back from the hospital, my mom and stepdad told me the truth. They said that when my mom was in college, she was dating a guy who she described as a real asshole. When she got pregnant, he left her, but my stepdad stepped in and did everything he could. They put his name on my birth certificate. My mom explained that when I confronted my stepdad, it really hurt him, and he lashed out in anger. They both asked for my forgiveness, and unfortunately, I gave it to them. Things seemed to go back to normal, but I started noticing things I hadn't before. Whenever my younger siblings needed something, my parents would drop everything to help them. But when it was me, I was told to figure it out on my own. On my birthdays, I hardly got any attention. Usually, just a hug from my mom. After I turned 6, I didn't even get a cake. Meanwhile, my siblings always had big parties. My stepdad would come home from work and have nothing to do with me. I was a nerdy kid who loved going to museums and doing all those geeky things, and I had no interest in sports. My brothers were the opposite, and my stepdad spent most of his free time playing or watching sports with them. If my brothers wanted to go to a game, my stepdad would do anything to take them and usually force me to go along. But if I wanted to see a new exhibit at the local museum, like the Devonian fossil exhibit, he would say he was too busy. Once he even told me, "Sorry, but that basketball game took up your entire entertainment budget this month." And that was the same game where he threw out my copy of Cosmos because he thought I shouldn't have brought a book to a family event. There were many other times when my parents showed their favoritism towards my siblings when I was younger, but this story is already getting long. What I want to point out is that this wasn't a new behavior after the truth came out. It had been going on for years, and I just thought it was because I was the eldest. Middle school was a nightmare. I've always been an introvert and preferred to be alone reading rather than talking to people. In my old school, I was a bit of an odd one out, but I wasn't picked on and I had friends. At the public school, though, I was quickly targeted and bullied. This made my mental health deteriorate badly, but my parents refused to do anything. They said, "It would toughen you up." I was bullied, but I fought back, and then they became my friends. That's just how guys become friends. Of course, the school wasn't any more helpful. I tried to fight back once, and it only made things worse. 3 kids ganged up on me, and I got suspended for 3 days. The only friend I managed to make was an older kid named Devin. He was 3 years older than me and took pity on me. He decided to protect me from the bullies. Over the next 3 years, things at home got even worse. My younger siblings noticed my parents' lack of care for me and my decreasing confidence, and they started harassing me. If they wanted something I had, they just took it. They called me names and played mean pranks on me. When I told my parents, they said I needed to lighten up. Needless to say, this didn't help. My parents also became really harsh, and I got beaten from time to time. Towards the end of my first year of middle school, I came home from the library and saw a letter from the middle school I wanted to go to. I opened it right away. It was a letter rejecting the applications of YB1 and YS. I didn't see anything about me, so I went to my parents. They punished me for opening their mail. But when I pushed them, they said YB1 and YS deserved to go to that school more than I did. Keep in mind, I had almost perfect grades at that time. When I argued that if they could afford to send YB1 and YS, I should be able to go too, I got beaten for talking back and opening their mail. To be honest, during this time, I tried self-harm. Whenever I did, my situation would improve a bit. I became the center of my parents' attention. Teachers would step in to stop the bullying, and even some kids at school would be nice to me. But after a week, everything went back to how it was. The only person who was really there for me was Devin. One day in the early part of 8th grade, I broke down and told Devin about my biological father. I had been thinking about why he left me when he found out about my mom's pregnancy. I thought it was partly his fault that my life was so bad. I said a lot of other things too, but that was the main part. While I was venting, I told Devin that my mom had accidentally let my dad's name slip, and I knew his name. So, Devin offered to help me find him. That day, Devin and I went to his house and started searching for my dad online. My biological dad was, and still is, a college professor at a research university about 200 miles from where we lived. We also found out that he was married and that I had another younger sister, and my stepmom was pregnant. That night, Devin and I made a plan to carry out the next day. I went to school, and as soon as I got off the bus, I went to the high school student parking lot and got into Devin's car, and we left. We got to the university around noon. After parking, Devin went to the student center and asked where my dad's office was and got directions. We went there, but he was out for lunch. When he came back about an hour later, he saw us sitting outside his office and asked who we were. I remember asking him his name and then if he knew my mom. When he said yes to both, I told him who I was and that I thought I was his son. Looking back, it sounds a bit cheesy, but Devin told me what to say. He probably got it from a bad Hallmark movie or something. I remember that he immediately hugged me tightly and kept saying, "Oh my God." He took us into his office to talk and canceled his classes for the day. After that, Devin left, and my dad took me home and introduced me to his family. My stepmom was surprised. She knew my dad had a son, but a 13-year-old showing up out of nowhere was a shock. Then they explained what had happened. According to my dad, he was dating my mom in their senior year of college when she told him she was pregnant. They were having relationship problems, and he suspected she was cheating. He was planning to break up with her when she told him. He thought she was trying to keep him, so he said he would do a paternity test and co-parent, but didn't want to be in a relationship. It turned out that my mom was cheating on him with my stepdad. When my dad had a more positive response, she cut off contact with him. When my dad married my stepmom, he told her he might have a child. They looked at my mom on Facebook and saw pictures of me. Since I don't look like my mom or stepdad but look a lot like my dad, he knew right away. He tried to contact my mom on Facebook, but she blocked him. He thought about getting a lawyer, but figured it would be almost impossible to get custody or visitation rights without a paternity test, and my mom and stepdad could have blocked that. I told him everything my mom and stepdad had done to me, even more than what I've already said. By the end, I was crying, and my stepmom was comforting me. After I finished, my dad silently went into the next room, called a lawyer, and then the police. The police, social services, and CPS all came and took me into custody. To sum it up, I was taken away from my mom and stepdad and became a temporary ward of the state. A paternity test confirmed what my dad had told me. Then I was placed in my dad and stepmom's care, and I was given a restraining order until I turned 18. It wasn't all perfect. Looking back, I caused some stress in my dad's marriage because he favored me over my half-siblings. But my dad and stepmom worked it out and set reasonable boundaries. I was enrolled in a much better school where I made real friends. I'll never forget Devin. We still keep in touch, although not as often as before because of the distance. We still talk regularly. Devin is doing well. After high school, he became an underwater welder for an oil company, and it pays really well. We've met up for drinks and to catch up. I asked him why he protected me. He said he wasn't sure, but when he saw me being bullied, something made him want to help. He also said he saw me as someone who needed a big brother, and he thought it was the right thing to do. After high school, I went to college and became quite popular as my confidence had been rebuilt. I majored in biology and minored in geology. Now I'm a PhD student in paleontology, and I love it. I get to go on university-sponsored digs, usually in the US, but last year I went to South Africa and Namibia. A few months ago, my mom and stepdad contacted me, asking me to tutor YB2 and YS. YS dropped out of college a few years ago because it was too hard, but she wants to go back and finish. YB2 wants to get into a good college next year, but doesn't have the grades and needs help studying for the ACTs. During that conversation, I felt my heart racing and had trouble breathing. I think it was a panic attack. I'd never had one before, so I just hung up on my mom and sat on the couch. The next day, I got some texts from my mom's kids asking for help, and I blocked all their numbers. After that, I didn't hear from them until I got a bunch of emails on my university email. They were all apologizing for how they treated me and saying they wanted to fix things and be a family. At first, I wanted to send an email back saying I didn't want any more contact, that just hearing from them was causing me trauma after all these years, and that I thought they only wanted a free tutor. But I never sent it. Instead, I just blocked them. In April, I was on a dig in Texas and got a call from the police. They said someone had called them because they thought someone had broken into my apartment. It was YB1 trying to contact me. I told the police he wasn't supposed to be there and that I wanted to press trespassing charges. Since it was his first offense, he was able to plea bargain it down to 100 hours of community service. I got home at the end of May, and I haven't heard from them since. I think they finally got the message and stopped trying to contact me. Anyway, I have a strong relationship with my dad. We spent a long time building it and making up for lost time. I also have a good relationship with my younger half-siblings from my dad and stepmom. I play with them and spend a lot of time with them, although there's a big age gap. My stepmom and I get along well. I'm not sure how to describe our relationship. She's not exactly like a mom to me, but she's definitely a motherly figure. I hope that makes sense. I'm not really sure how to end this. Maybe there's a message in it, but maybe not. I just felt like sharing my story. But as I was writing this and remembering the abuse I went through, and then proofreading it, I started to feel really anxious. I think I might have some suppressed trauma, and I'm going to look into getting therapy